You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth! What happens when truth doesn't matter?
Welcome to The Outsiders. I'm your host, Sean Sims, and with my superstar co-host, Marvin Doc Cheatham. Doc, how are things going?
Things are going great. It's baseball season, so I'm having a good time.
You know what? I'm glad you brought up the baseball season. Springtime, we got the Orioles. We had Passover, of course, known as Ishtar. But Passover's gone by, and the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ died for everyone's sins except Him. Believe it, accept Him. It won't be good for you. But that's my belief. But anyway,
I concur with you.
The Orioles are 4-2, and they just need to keep winning the series, just like they did last year. I believe they won every series they played, each one. So keep it up. I mean, it's 4-2. The season's just started, folks. So
it's a long season.
Yes, it is. It's a long season. It's just started. So just relax. We got a long ways to go. We just got in the month of April. So we'll see how things go there. Our guest is going to be President of Hanlon Improvement Association. She is a part of the Outsiders. She's more than just an honorary outsider. She's a part of the Outsiders. Linda Batts is going to be our special guest, so I'll be calling her in a little bit. And we'll be talking about the Key Bridge, giving people some vital information they didn't know. It amazes me how Baltimore City, the residents, when it comes to information that's in Baltimore City, the knowledge base is pretty low. I'm getting information coming from places outside of Baltimore about what happened with the Key Bridge and other vital information. So we're going to touch on that as well, and the race that's going on, the mayor's race. We may touch on that presidential race, what's going on there. But Doc, I believe you have some information you want to share with the folks. What's going on now?
I really appreciate this opportunity very much. I'm hoping that once other radio shows and other podcasts here, that they will at least address three issues that are affecting black people in general, but low-income people more than middle-class folks. Middle-class folks don't talk about these three issues, but it has a major effect on what's happening to black folks here in Baltimore City. The first issue is the healthiest black neighborhood in the city of Baltimore, better known as Ashburton, transferred thousands of pounds of suspected contaminated dirt from the Ashburton area, which is a middle-class black neighborhood, and they dumped it in the Rosemont area, a lower income, predominantly black neighborhood. Well, you know, folks would say, well, golly gee, you had to put the dirt somewhere. Well, why would you have the mayor, the controller, and the president of the city council on the board of estimates to say that once we detected what they had done, they were very apologetic. They didn't realize what they had done. Well, it was too late. You did 3 months of taking contaminated dirt purportedly from a wealthy black neighborhood, and you literally dumped it in a poor black neighborhood, and you wonder why the life expectancy of blacks in the city of Baltimore is lower wherever there is a majority. So, you know, I'm telling folks, this is going to come back to haunt us. I don't mind telling you also, I had 2 relatives that I know their lives were shortened because they worked at the Ashburton filtration plant. And what was it called? It was called the filtration plant. So that's issue number 1, that you had wealthy black neighborhood, Ashburton, dump their contaminated contaminated dirt. They took it out of their area and put it into a poor black area. That's issue number one. Issue number two. Issue number two is something called Charm City free bus circulator for white folks. Now, Baltimore City is a predominantly African-American city.
Yes, it is.
We're a little bit over 60-something. But you have this circulator bus that is going through overwhelmingly white neighborhoods. The buses are free. And when we finally exposed what they had done through the AFRA wrote a very excellent article going with our recommendation, our meaning Matthew Henson, that we recommended that if you're going to give white folks in Baltimore City free buses, then let's go quid pro quo. Let's do that also for black neighborhoods. So we suggested in the AFRO that there be another circulator bus, and it'll go from North Avenue, Hilton to Milton. So we're asking folks, because this is not an issue that middle-class black folks would bring up. Mind you, we poor folks fight for everybody. Rich middle-class folks, very seldom do you hear them put themselves on the line for the poor black community. So I don't mind telling folks, I gave most of my life to civil rights work, but civil rights for poor people, because you rich folks, y'all got all the TV time, all the newspaper time, all the radio time, but the Charm City bus circulator needs to be an issue, because middle class folks won't discuss it. But why are you giving white folks a free bus and you're not doing it for blacks? And the last issue. Mm-hmm. I try to do both of these within about a minute and a half.
No, that's fine.
The last issue is this one, and this one is going to be a very threatening issue for black folks and some white folks. So white folks, they might join us on this one, since our middle class folks don't give a damn about us poor folks. Maybe that this new issue that's coming to a neighborhood near you is called Frederick Douglass Amtrak Tunnel. Mm-hmm. Amtrak Tunnel called Frederick Douglass. What we have found is that through our neighborhood, which is Matthew Henson, we are the largest density neighborhood in the city of Baltimore. Did you hear what I said? Matthew Henson is the largest density neighborhood in the city of Baltimore. Mm-hmm. What is our population? 36,000. All right, you can't come up with a single community. You may even come up with some conglomerations of neighborhoods, but you can't find one neighborhood that has 36,000 folks. We have the Amtrak's tunnel coming through our neighborhood, and 85 to 90% of the neighbors haven't even heard about it. Wow. Haven't even heard about it. You need to Google it. It's called Amtrak's Frederick Douglass Tunnel. On the 16th of April, which is on a Tuesday, Matthew Henson will host a meeting. We will host the meeting outside in our park and playground, hoping to encourage everybody to come so they will not be reluctant to go to a school or go to the fraternity house where we meet. We're going to have it at our park and playground. We've invited Amtrak's and the Maryland Department of Transportation to come and discuss with us what the hell is going on with this tunnel. That what we're hearing is that they are offered some of our neighbors, very few of our neighbors in West Baltimore own their houses. Many of the folks are renters. And what we found is the few people that got notified by the Department of Transportation, they've been offered, in case something happens to their house, when the tunnel goes under their house, they've offered to give them $7,000.
Wow.
$7,000.
Really?
Can they pay for the paint?
$7,000.
What they offered. So we have signed the document. We have hired an attorney. It's called the Community Law Center. We've signed their document that they sent to us. We requested their expert assistance. There will be other communities that we think will join us, but we saying hell no. You're not going to come and tell us you're going to offer us $7,000 if you tear up our house. So we're going to meet at 6 o'clock in the evening in the 1500 block of North McKean. Yeah, that's the Freddie Gray area. Freddie Gray area is not Penn North. It is not Penn North. The largest Freddie Gray area that got hit, 13 businesses, was Matthew Henson. On the 16th of April at 6 o'clock, we're going to be meeting in the 1500 block of McKean. If it rains, we're going to go into a church that's right behind our park. But we're going to have a major discussion about this tunnel coming through our neighborhood where most of our folks have no idea that it's coming. And we're saying very carefully, we want restoration. You're going to come do damage to our neighborhood. We expect something in return. We want quid pro quo. So that's my 3 issues today. Hopefully some other TV station, radio stations, or podcasts will be men and women enough to bring this issue up. Sadly enough, middle-class black folks don't talk about issues that affect poor black folks. Middle-class folks only talk about issues that affect us.
Well, yeah, it's called being sedity. They're sedity. They only deal with what their issue is. For the folks down there, for the folks and the poor folks, oh well. Yeah, and you're right. They seem to focus on what's going on with them. And you got some attorneys on this, Doc?
Well, it's better than attorneys. There is a group that does pro bono work. These are all attorneys. It's called the Community Law Center. They're located in the Hampton area. They were the ones 8 years ago that did the paperwork for us. That's why we're probably one of the most active nonprofits in Baltimore City, because they're the ones who got our 501c3 legally for us. And we're not like these $1 million organizations that are getting this money in for Baltimore City, and they are not paid up with being a 501c3. Most of these folks that are getting 501c3 money in Baltimore City are not up to date in filing their paperwork.
Wow.
We're not one of those.
Oh, well, that needs to be looked into as well. Well, Linda just called in. Hold on, let me see if I can get Linda Batts in. I was going to call her in a little bit, but I guess she jumped the route and called in a little bit earlier. So we can see if we can get Linda Batts, the president of Hanlon Improvement Association. She's a part of the Outsiders on. Hello, Linda. Hello, Linda.
Hey, how are you?
I saw you called earlier. I was going to call you at 2:30, but that's okay. I figure you might have been calling because you needed to speak earlier. But Doc's on the line, and we're up and.
Linda, how are you?
Hey, Doc, how you doing, darling?
I woke up. It's a good day in the neighborhood. You know what? The sun was out there. I had to check myself. I said, "Is that really the sun?"
Yeah, it was finally. Right.
God bless you and happy belated Easter.
Absolutely, sir. Same to you as well.
Yes, belated Easter. But I want to do this. This is what I want to do. I'm going to go ahead and play a clip. I'm going to play a clip so everyone can hear it. I'm going to comment on it as well. Linda, I want you to listen in on the clip I'm going to play, of course, and Doc. And then, Linda, I want you to specifically to comment on what you hear. It has to do with Slim Shady, the Shady one, on MSNBC with Joy Reid, and what he had to say was in regards to the bridge, and he was actually complaining, whining a little bit about, I guess, what he was called as the mayor of Baltimore City. So hold on a tick. Let me go ahead and play that. Okay, let me cue it.
Farm and construction machinery, a top importer of sugar, and second in the nation for export of coal, and not just coal for black people, Republicans, coal for everybody. Join me now is Baltimore Mayor Brandon Scott. I will allow you, Mayor Scott, if you choose to do so, to respond to the tomfoolery and attacks on you for having the nerve.
First of all, let me explain something. I'm going to do this throughout. It's a few-minute clip, and I have to comment. Now I pull this up and I'm looking at this MSNBC interview, and you have, I mean, you have some of the sisters, some of the black ladies, they like to dye their hair blonde. And so you got Joy Reid with blonde hair. I guess the blue eye contacts are coming next. And she's going to talk about Brandon Scott. Brandon's going to talk about his situation, how he feels and his feelings. And as I'm looking at this, he's got on a hoodie. Now, there's nothing wrong with hoodies. I have hoodies. I have my Puma hoodies. I have certain hoodies. But you have the mayor of Baltimore City on national media, MSNBC, with a daggone hoodie, looking like some kind of wannabe thug. So let me go on.
To be black and also a mayor.
Well, I think, listen, I know, and we all know.
No, I know that you look like an idiot on MSNBC with a damn hoodie, looking ridiculous. This is the embarrassment we're talking about. People, you want to vote for this ass clown on MSNBC in a daggone hoodie with the left eye drooping? I don't know what that's all about, but let me go on.
You know very well that black men, and young black men in particular, have been the boogeyman for those who are racist and think that only...
Well, you're not helping. You're not helping with a hoodie. Let me go on. That doesn't help things.
Straight, wealthy white men should have a say in anything. We've been the boogeyman from them since the first day they brought us to this country. And what they mean by DEI, in my opinion...
Now, since they first brought us to this country, does he mean slavery? Just say slavery, Brandon. Just say slavery. Okay, let's go on. They, I guess they mean they by white folks. Let's go on. No, and I have to say this. Now, slavery was not only white folks. You had to have Africans enslave other Africans in order to sell the Africans to the white folks. So they didn't just run over in Africa and just grab folks. There were Africans who were enslaving Africans and selling them. Okay? So let's get the history straight.
And is duly elected incumbent. We know what they want to say, but they don't have the courage to say the N-word. And the fact that I don't believe in their untruthful and wrong ideology, and I am very proud of my heritage and who I am and where I come from, scares them. Because me being in my position means that their way of thinking, their way of life of being comfortable and suffering, and while everyone else suffers, is going to be at risk. And they should be afraid, because that's my purpose in life.
Okay, so what is he saying? Is he saying that, what? That all white folks are comfortable? I mean, I know some white folks who are not comfortable, and I mean, I don't get it. I got to replay this because this just not making sense.
We know what they want to say, but they don't have the courage to say the N-word. And the fact that I don't believe in their untruthful and wrong ideology, and I am very proud of my heritage and who I am and where I come from.
Brandon, what is your heritage and who are you? What are you and who are you? Let me continue.
Here's them, because me being in my position means that their way of thinking, their way of life of being comfortable and suffering, and while everyone else suffers, is going to be at risk. And they should be afraid, because that's my purpose in life.
And by the way, you know, the coded racism, before we even knew the nationalities of the men, Maria Bartiromo was out there talking about open borders and trying to somehow signal that they wanted to go after the brown people too, because of course that is their other target. We know that the men who are doing this hard construction work overnight, trying to fix the potholes on this bridge, working very hard, were Latino. And so that's now on the table too. We know that this ship, which came from Singapore, was piloted by a very heroic crew from India, whose Mayday call saved lives. Not maybe saved lives, but did. So this is a full-throated attack. But this is also what America is. It is people of multiple races.
Okay, enough. I know what America is. You don't have to tell me. This thing about white and straight and white. What is going on with what he's saying? Does he have an issue with straight white men or straight people, or because it begs a question. When I saw the whole interview, I mean, he talked about white and straight men, it begs the question, why are you bringing in whether they're straight or not? I mean, is that an issue, or do you have an issue with straight people or white people, Brandon? These people are your voters. These are a huge block of voters that you just disenfranchise. And it's not making any sense to me. I mean, straight, gay, are you gay, Brandon? Is that why you have a problem with straight people? We know you're black. I've been hearing the rumors, so I'm going to ask since you brought it up. Since you brought it up on MSNBC, Brandon, straight white men, we know you're not white. So are you saying you're not straight because you have a problem with straight people? I mean, that's just another question I have. This interview was a cluster F as far as I was concerned. And Linda, I want to bring you in. What do you think with this DEI and all this other stuff? What do you think of this interview?
Well, that depends on how much time I have, Sean. But I am a long-standing DEI professional with 40 plus years of experience, both domestically and internationally, and even at the city level. I don't know what really the mayor's frame of reference was and what his lens was in that moment, in the midst of that interview with the forces that were surrounding him. But I think that there was a significant opportunity missed to take control of the message and deliver it in a different way that would have focused on his results in terms of changing the uncomfortable history of America's legacy and how it is played out today. I think that there are so many things that could have been referenced, not only in terms of the American Rescue Act funds and how he has taken those funds to advance an agenda that not only included people of color, but people with disabilities, the LGBTQ plus communities, rural and urban communities that have faced persistent poverty. He could have pointed to results if there were tangible results in that area to say, listen, I'm carrying out the president's agenda, but more importantly than that, I am carrying out my own equity agenda that I implemented in 2018 to close the gaps in policy practice and the allocation of resources, to overcome the history of racism and discrimination that has plagued our city today. He could have pointed to any one of a long-standing list of performance measures that I hope he has that shows where he has made progress community by community to lift up communities instead of giving handouts. You know, most people, when you talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they want to leave folks with the impression that you're getting something for nothing. And diversity, equity, and inclusion has a number of tenets that underscore the overarching approach. So, I mean, he could have, as he did, he referenced the transatlantic slave trade, but the bottom line is as the United Nations has recognized, that transatlantic slave trade has created a legacy of discrimination that continues to play out today. And that's not universally. There are some blacks and people of color and other groups that have made it up Maslow's hierarchy of need. They're doing well, they're thriving, they're living their best lives. But when you look at the data economically, and you look at communities where they are oppressed and have been redlined, have there been changes made? I would have simply leaned in to all of that and said that as a leader who has a cabinet that has a youth commission, an LGBTQ commission, a Hispanic commission, a chief equity officer, an immigrant affairs services, a homeless services, an African American male engagement services, a small and minority business advocacy service. Yes, I am a proponent of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, what do you have to say about that?
Well, that would actually have been an intelligent, informative answer that would have dove in to the actual fact of equity, inclusion is needed, diversity, that is needed. That would have been an intelligent answer. But you have a man who has issues, who obviously has issues, and cannot give an intelligent answer, goes on MSNBC in a daggone hoodie, okay, looking a hot mess. And this thing with the straight, I'm going to get on it because my brother was gay. See, my people don't know that. I had a brother, German. He was gay. Okay, he didn't hide it. He didn't hide it. Now, if Brandon has an issue and that's where you lean, bruh, then don't hide it. I mean, if that's what you are, because you obviously have an issue, and you can watch the full interview. You can go on YouTube or pull up MSNBC and watch that full interview with Brandon Scott embarrassing the city of Baltimore, and watch the interview. And I thought that was interesting. Why is he saying that? Is there an issue with that? And the answer of pushing away diversity and equality, equity, and inclusion, and pushing that away, and then twisting it to say, hey, they're using that because they're scared to call me the N-word? What kind of nonsense, what kind of ridiculousness and stupidity? And you just said it so eloquently, Linda. That's how he should have handled it. Doc, what do you think of that interview, what we're talking about?
There's no sense in putting icing on a cake when Linda baked the cake so well. I can't add anything additional. All I can say is amen, amen, amen. Linda hit the ball out the park.
Right, and let me say this. You know, I, along with Darnell Ingram and Quentin Herbert and Miss Baloo Bangora, established the first Office of Equity, Diversity, Equity, and Civil Rights in the city of Baltimore. So I'm fully familiar with what it was intended to do when former Mayor Jack Young, set the groundwork for its implementation and how it is playing out today. We have had every opportunity to build a record of accomplishment that we can point to show how, particularly with all the funding that we have had in this singular period of time since 2019 till today, to improve the lot of our citizenry and our communities. And so the rhetorical question, the elephant in the room is, have we done so?
Well, that's a good question. I don't believe we have done enough that we could do. I don't believe we've had. There's more that we can do.
I think the same thing with the consent decree, which from my vantage point has been a disaster. It's been a failure. I feel the same thing with equity in Baltimore City. You can name at least 5 major communities that are still suffering, and equity did nothing. You can look at Cherry Hill. Do you disagree? You can look at Sandtown. Do you disagree? You can look at Harlem Park West. Do you disagree? You can look at Midtown Emerson. Do you disagree? You can look at Emerson Village area. These are areas that have been neglected over and over and over. There are 2 Winchesters in Baltimore City. One probably doesn't even exist anymore. The only real Winchester we have now is between Emerson Avenue, Bentlow Street, and Poplar Grove. We have what's considered to be increase in life expectancy going in the wrong area. Life expectancy is decreasing, and it's because the Equity Commission ain't worth shit. I'm sorry I use that bad word, but I don't know how best to say it.
It's a good thing this is a podcast.
They have done nothing. They have done nothing to address equity. When I bring up those 3 issues I brought up earlier, these are equity issues. And because it doesn't affect white folks and rich black folks, most folks don't give a damn.
Well,
Doc, you have distilled equity to its basic denominator. If you cannot see changes for the disenfranchised and the underserved as a result of equity legislation as a result of funding that has come in to support equity programs, then there's some accountability that has to be assessed and evaluated.
That's true. That's sure. Linda, can you stay on? I'm going to do a story real quick. It has to do with the bridge collapse. Or do you have to go?
Yes, I'll stay.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read this article. Just give me a couple of minutes because you gotta understand what is going on out here. And I want the people to understand what exactly is going on right now. Now, the question, how can you have a 173-year-old law created for wooden ships complicate the rebuilding of the Francis Scott Key Bridge? And what about renaming the bridge? President Biden said the federal government should pay to rebuild the bridge. Now, here's an issue. This is what's going on, people in Baltimore. That's why we're the outsiders. We get the inside information. Okay, this is from Fortune magazine. The owner and manager of a cargo ship that rammed into Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge before the span collapsed filed a court petition this past Monday seeking to limit their legal liability for the deadly disaster. The company's limitation of liability petition is a routine but important procedure for cases litigated under U.S. maritime law. A federal court in Maryland ultimately decides who is responsible and how much they owe for what could become one of the costliest catastrophes of its kind. Singapore-based Grace Ocean Private Ltd. owns the Dolly, the vessel that lost power, so they say, before it slammed into the bridge early last Tuesday. Synergy Marine Pte. Limited, also based in Singapore, is the ship's manager. Their joint filing seeks to cap the company's liability at roughly $43.6 million. It estimates that the vessel itself is valued at up to $90 million and was owed over $1.1 million in income from freight. The estimate also deducts two major expenses, at least $20 million in repair costs and at least $19.5 million in salvage costs. Now here it is, the kicker. The companies filed under a pre-Civil War provision of an 1851 maritime law that allows them to seek to limit their liability to the value of the vessel's remains after a casualty. It's a mechanism that has been employed as a defense in many of the most notable maritime disasters, said James Mercante, a New York City-based attorney with over 30 years of experience in maritime law. And you're looking at upwards the Baltimore disaster, which would be the biggest disaster of its kind, could be $2 to $4 billion. So if they get a limit of a cap of 43.6 million, and people keep talking about, well, the ship, they'll pay for, oh really? Well, you need to learn maritime law, folks. $43.6 million could be the possible cap, and you're looking at $2 to $4 billion. That means the taxpayers are on the hook, and there's a lot of money that's going to be going around to contractors and all kinds of different folks for a disaster that was supposedly an accident. Quickly, guys, what do you think of that? Anybody jump in?
Well, let me say this. This disaster is quite unfortunate, and it just raises, for me, the specter of curiosity around accountability, audit, inspections, and what have you. So that's one thing. The other thing is, when we talk about the opportunity to rebuild following the horrible calamity, we've had a number of other rebuilding opportunities in the city. I mean, we rebuilt our water drinking as a result of federal guidance, where we brought in contractors to secure and safeguard the water. We had these laws on the book for 30 or 40 years, and contractors have come in, and the question is, they redone with the board in communities and didn't include communities. The communities didn't benefit from them. There was no training that preceded these major projects that allowed the citizenry, particularly the underserved citizenry, to be the first on deck recipient to get jobs and other benefits as a result of it. If we are going to take this opportunity to do things right, then we must do an autopsy on all of the other similar projects that have come through, maybe not of this scale, but in the past, to learn from them before we prematurely go out and allow other big companies and developers to come in here and continue to do what they do, and that is inflate their incomes while the poor still remain poor and the underserved still remain underserved, and slight groups of people in the bottom rung of Maslow's hierarchy, in the middle rung, have an opportunity to ease up, but not with any significant impact that will change the overall quality of lives for all blacks, for all women, for all citizens who have been native to this land called Baltimore. And until we do that and put out a platform and an approach that allows for consideration of all of these factors, we're just going to be repeating the mistakes of the past.
Well, here's the thing. This is what I think. Okay, I said this last week, and I had a Fox 45 reporter. I'm not going to say his name. And don't ever, let me tell you this, Fox 45 reporter, you know who you are. You got the show, you got the text. And he sent me a text back basically saying, don't send him anything until you have facts. So I take that as a challenge. I take that as a challenge. So listen here, Fox 45, and it's not Jeff Abel, Doc. Mr. Fox 45 reporter, who you think you're hot stuff, you want to get, let me go ahead and play something, because I have a lot of information. Your report, as far as I'm concerned, Mr. Fox 45 reporter, you missed a whole lot. Now that's your genre. That's your wheelhouse. That's what you do. And this is what I'm doing as a podcast. This is what I do as a podcast. But I have a skill set too, Jack. So let me play a little something so that people can hear a little information. And there's going to be more information coming, Mr. Fox 45 reporter, who's obviously missing a whole lot, who basically told me, oh, just pretty much accept what they said. What I said and what the media said, just to pretty much accept that there's nothing there. I don't do that. I don't do that. So let me go ahead and here we go. Let me go ahead and play this. Cue it up. Here we go.
General Mike Flynn says the bridge collapse in Baltimore is a black swan event. Now, it's much bigger than we know, so let's unpack this. And I have to say, I've done everything over the past 24 hours since this collapse happened in the early morning hours to say nothing to see here, total accident, mechanical problem, of course. It looks like a mechanical failure, a power outage, nothing to see here, don't worry about it. Then General Mike Flynn has to go and call this a black swan event and says, look more deeply into this. So we have. And there's more than meets the eye. So what? Leaving us scrambling to make sense of what in the world just happened. So here's Mike Flynn's post on X this afternoon. This is a black swan event, he says. Black swans normally come out of the world of finance, not military. The standard operating procedures for all U.S. ports, harbors, and bays, the transit, commerce, and military activities are supposed to maintain an incredible level of discipline, rigor, and awareness for these very type of events not to occur ever. Yet here we are. There are harbor masters for every single one of these transit points in America that are in charge of assuring the safety of navigation. Start there, he says. The swerve in order to hit this pylon. Total change of direction when you see it in that kind of speed. With that kind of movement. Really crazy to look at. As Laura Logan tweeted this afternoon, the GPS systems that drive these boats are not encrypted. Journalist Laura Logan, one of the best journalists in the world. The GPS systems that drive these boats are not encrypted. When a Navy ship crashed into a large cargo ship not that long ago, it was a cyber attack that made that happen. I know they're saying that this was not nefarious, but how do they know so quickly? Right, that's a great question. How do they know so quickly? With the ship, who was monitoring this the whole way, and was there any electrical cyber attack that took place on board the ship? Laura Logan brings up a great point, but those are all of the facts right now. That's what we know about the direction of the ship, those explosions that took place. Were they simply transformers blowing on those particular pieces of the bridge that fell and broke apart? Why were there multiple power outages, and what happened to the backup system on this? And what about the Chesapeake Bay pilot who was on board? What can they tell us about what happened here? So all of these things, and the Biden White House saying nothing to see here, nothing nefarious.
Yeah, nothing to see here. Brandon and Wes are touting. Oh, please don't watch the video. Please, please don't watch the video. Please don't watch the video. What happened? Oh no, because it's gonna hurt people's feelings. Don't watch the video. So they come out saying that, and then they have this answer quickly. Oh, this is nothing to see here, and there's nothing that happened. And then you have 4 decades. It was since 1980. It's 2024. It was since 1980. Actually, it's more than 4. It's like 6 decades since there was an accident like this of any kind. So you're talking about a whole lot of years. It's only happened 1 time since 1980. And speaking of backups, power went on and power went off. I studied this stuff. Hey, Mr. Fox 45 reporter, don't you ever challenge me, because I'll clean your clock. Did you study, Mr. Fox 45 reporter, how these ships this size have 3, 4, sometimes 5 backup generators? Did you study that? Did you study it takes 15 to 25 seconds usually for that power to cut back on with one of those multiple generators? Did you study that? Did you study that when the lights go out, they're supposed to go out at night? The lights are supposed to be turned off at night so you can see the lights for the port and the starboard side and in the front and the rear, etc. And that's what a ship captain said. That's what's supposed to happen. And then he said what'll happen is sometimes generator will kick back on, then you got to turn lights back off so the other ships can see. And I got a whole lot more information. So don't you tell me that your report and the story that you put out and the stories coming out, that's copacetic, that's all there needs to be said, and then you're going to challenge me and act like I don't know what I'm talking about. You need to get your facts straight, and you need to do your job, because guess what? I have a podcast. I'm not beholden to a news organization or to a person who tells me what I can and can't say. You are. Yes, you are, Mr. Fox 45 reporter. You can't get up there and do what I'm doing. You understand that? You have to do what they tell you to do, and you have to say what they tell you to say, and you can't go off script. So you've got a script. So you want to challenge me? Oh yeah, do it again. He knows who I'm talking to. Do it again. Challenge me again. I will put you out there next time if you want to go there. Okay, sorry, Linda. Go ahead. I just had to get that out.
Well, thank you. And you sound very passionate about it. Unfortunately, the audio was not clear enough for me to really ascertain the full tenor of what transpired. So,
well, I can tell you. I can tell you. When you see that, when you pull a show off, it'll be clear and you can listen. But basically, what was said is that General Flynn, General Flynn, said it looks like a black swan event, and that's something that's unusual, that hits out of nowhere. And Laura Logan, who was a reporter, well-known reporter, Laura Logan said, "Wait a second, there are cyber attacks. Things like this happen. How can you come out so quickly with, hey, this is what happened and that's it?" So there are people, serious people, questioning what happened. That's what they just started.
I have a different analysis on this issue.
Okay, Doc.
My analysis is this, that I've always felt that there's a civil rights resolution answer for many of the issues if we look at it from a civil rights perspective. When I look at this whole idea of ships and boats, there is no limitation on how much profit can be made by any of these companies. There's no limitation on profit. Then why do you put a limitation on liability?
Bingo.
They seem to contradict one another.
Yes.
So my solution to that has been for at least 50 years, and I learned this from A. Philip Randolph. He didn't call it this, but that's what he was talking about. He was talking about restoration. You know, why do we not limit how much money a ship company can make or profits, but we limit how much liability they have. So in some way, shape, or form, you got to come up with an equation that brings some equality into the issue. My equality issue is always to sue. I've sued 3 companies, individually or collectively, and we won all 3. We filed a lawsuit against Martin O'Malley for illegal arrest. We filed a lawsuit against the state of Maryland for HBCUs. We filed a lawsuit for the Confederate statutes. And what we got in return was what we call restoration. That's what we're going to look at with these tunnels. We're going to look for restoration. How do we make whole the damage that's going to be done to our community? No one is talking about how many millions of dollars those ship companies make coming into our port. Anybody discuss how much money they make?
Yeah, you got to get.
And I'll close with this. Anybody guesstimate how many black people work for them?
Good. Yeah, it's a good one.
Have you seen any black people? Have you seen any?
That's a good one. Singapore. Well.
So, Doc, I spent 10 years in Washington, D.C. with Customs, now Customs and Border Protection, and very familiar, at least not in 2024 context, but when I worked then about the demographics of the maritime industry, and, you know, the processes that one needs to have in place to ensure that your bridges, your ships, and all of your infrastructure, we talk about infrastructure, meets safe standards. And so, I mean, there is a whole lot of, I think there are a whole lot of unanswered questions here. And I'm just looking forward to the continued unfolding of information that will help educate us and shape the direction that we move in as we not only repair, but assess the extent to which all other infrastructure projects that have not had the kind of attention since they've been built merit an inspection and safety check going forward.
Well, this has got a lot of attention, and that was a great segue, because I want to give attention to something that is not being talked about. It looks like it's being ignored. Maybe people are saying it's too soon to start talking in that manner, and that is the bridge itself and the name of the bridge, Francis Scott Key. I did a little homework, and you guys know how I am. I'll dig into something. And I found something out very interesting that we all need to know, because this is going to be important in the renaming of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Let me pull it up.
The park where a statue of Francis Scott Key once stood. It was toppled last year on Juneteenth by protesters against racial injustice just weeks after the death of George Floyd.
Francis Scott Key was a horrible person.
Key, the creator of the Star-Spangled Banner, was a slaveholder himself.
And it wasn't until his sculpture was toppled there last year that I and many others found out that he was an anti-abolitionist, that he owned other human beings, that he used his power and his position and his money to further enslave people.
King is helping design the most effective way to reveal the painful history represented by Monumental Reckoning, including the fact that the beloved U.S. national anthem was written by a slave owner. She says the exhibit will spotlight the rarely sung third verse of the Star-Spangled Banner. In the third stanza, Key wrote about sending slaves to their graves. Some historians say that was meant to threaten African Americans who were promised freedom by the British if they fought on their side in the war between the U.S. and Great Britain.
You know, I'm 61 years old. I have put my hand over my heart so many times I can't even count, and sung the Star-Spangled Banner, not knowing that the third stanza carried the words that enslaved people should be sent to their graves. I won't sing it again.
Here it is. I'll read it. Listen up. This is the third stanza, 5 sentences down into the third stanza. This is what it reads. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. That is in there. Didn't know that. I'm pretty sure people listening to the show on iHeart and Spotify and so on and YouTube, our YouTube viewers, I'm pretty sure you didn't know that either. This Black Lives Matter movement, woke movement, and so on, which are toppling monuments left and right. I mean, and now you have this situation, and then you have this so-called woke mayor, who hopefully won't be mayor after the election, after this primary. He just disregarded a whole block of his voters. Hypocrite. What is he going to do? Well, he won't be around to do it. Shouldn't be. What is the next mayor going to do in regards to the name and the state and the naming? Because they're putting the money out in the federal government. They're paying for it. What do you all think is going to happen? What do you think of all that?
Well, I would say this, and I've been a union man all my life. I joined the government in 71 and was a union member every year since then. But I would say this, I'm embarrassed with the AFL-CIO and their selection of candidates that they are supporting this year. I don't want to see AFL-CIO anywhere near my neighborhood because it's clear they're not in tune with what's going on in Baltimore. And I'm saying sadly enough, you know, we got to do something, and we only got a little more than 60 days to resolve some of these problems we got. Some of these people running for office got to step down and not run. Otherwise, we're going to keep getting what we've been getting for the last 50 years.
Linda, what do you think of this information?
Break it down.
Thanks, Todd. Hello, Linda. Okay, Linda must be busy because I see her on. I'm looking right at she's there. I'll tell you what I think.
Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Now we can. Now we can't. Okay. I'll tell you what I think. Surprised. My dad was actually born on September the 14th, the day that Francis Scott Key wrote the Star-Spangled Banner. And I come to find out because we always read the first verse. We don't go into the second, third, or fourth verse of the Star-Spangled Banner. People don't know it. But you've got here, a reference. He was against abolishing slavery, own slaves. This is like I discovered about Christopher Columbus and what he did. Horrific. The man was an abomination of a human being. That's what he was. It's just a fact, and that's what we say on the show. Well, Jack Nicholson does anyway. When a show intros, you want the truth. You can't handle the truth. People can't handle the truth. They're a bunch of snowflakes. They can't. And the truth should be, I should say, that Sheila Dixon and Brandon Scott should not be mayor of this city. Sheila Dixon is an embezzler. She is a criminal. She is corrupt. Period. Brandon Scott is a disgrace. He sold out the people with this BG&E deal. He gave them control, not ownership, control, which is basically the same thing, of the conduit system. He's a disgrace, a national disgrace. Both of them. Obama wouldn't even get anywhere near, wouldn't get near Dixon, Sheila Dixon, when he came into town and was running for re-election. He wouldn't get near her because she was kryptonite. And you want to bring that back? I have people who from out of town came into town, friends of mine who lived in Baltimore their whole lives, recently moved away, came back and said, what is going on here? It's like what is going on with Baltimore? This is a disgrace. They were upset. And then they found out Sheila Dixon was running. They almost threw up. And then they found out Brandon Scott did this to the city, turned it into a desert, ran businesses away. And people are asking, hey, is Sheila Dixon running again? You guys aren't going to put her in there. You must be crazy.
Well, I think, Sean, that goes back to a point, and back to your earlier point. I mean, I think that the point that you brought up about the history, the bridge, Francis Scott Key, and all of that, allows for an opportunity for what we call deep planing in the dentistry business.
Mm-hmm.
Really go in and take another look at history and really understand how we got to where we are, not only in terms of the name, but in terms of the current issue that resulted in this catastrophe. But equally important, you have made a point on a number of your other podcasts and on other platforms where you talk about vetting and due diligence and doing your research.
Yes.
And it really, that is probably one of the most profound sets of instruction that guide all of the conversations. And that is, folks really have to understand what is at stake, what the performance outcomes have been from the people who have held these offices in the past and currently encumber these positions, and where the most value for change that will guide the future of our city in a healthy and productive manner that will benefit not only everyone, but especially those who have been disenfranchised by a legacy of policies that have excluded them and not benefited them. And so this is what is at stake here. And folks have to do their research, and to the extent that folks have not done their research, you are doing a great job of pointing this out in whatever medium you have access to. So, I just thank you for your voice, and thank you for your carrot. Thank you for Doc, who has been in many different forums and platforms conversing about this, the Patrick Henderson Show, C4, and all of these other platforms where this topic is currently hot and necessary.
It should be necessary because this is the mayor of the city. Baltimore is the largest city in the country. And I tell people that and they look at me, what about New York and Chicago and LA and Houston, blah, blah. I said, no, wait a second. Baltimore is the largest city in the country. It is the largest independent city in the country. This strong mayor system where the mayor has so much control, you need to get rid of the strong mayor system because it sucks. Sheila loves it. She didn't want to get rid of it because she wants to get back in there because some knucklehead judge said, hey, you can go back in and run again after a certain amount of time, even though we know you're a criminal. Isn't that great? I don't know. I got to look up who this judge did this, that put this on us where she could run again. So then now you got her. And to deal with that, do not vote for these folks, these people, these low-life scumbags. Get some new people in here, city council too. Let's get rid of these scumbags and get some new people in here with fresh ideas. And another thing that needs to be done is there needs to be a mechanism, just like there should be for this Tiffany Henyard in Illinois, outside of Chicago, this Tiffany Henyard mayor, or whatever she is, and superintendent, that woman, there's no mechanism to remove her as far as I know. So those people are suffering just like Baltimore's suffering under Brandon. So there needs to be a mechanism, and people keep saying recall. Let's go to another dimension and let's get deeper in our thoughts other than recall. You have a charter, it can be tweaked. There needs to be a remove and a replace. Remove and replace mechanism that's easier to do than a recall, which is a bunch of, it's too much you got to go through with a recall. That needs to be done to get rid of people who are in office, in these offices, who are elected officials. And I got an elected official who's in an office who has been doing the dirty and been doing the dirty ever since he got his very, very young 25-year-old Heinpons in office. And yes, it's coming out, all the crap that he's been doing, including this support of sexual harassment that's been going on rampant in the circuit court for Baltimore City. And now, and all of that's coming out. All of it's coming out and talking about, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to run an audit. You know what? An audit does need to be run on you, on what you're doing. And that's another thing. And I'm just saying all this. Let me finish real quickly. And I'm saying this to say that you have people who are elected officials who get in and they figure, I can run amok. I can run roughshod because I got 4 years and there's no way to get rid of me. And there has to be a way to get rid of them.
So, Sean, may I say this? You know, is it the strong mayor system, or is it the poor decision making that calls for a new order to what you call the strong mayor? Because I believe, having worked in as many different sectors as I have, with leaders who have had what amounts to autonomous decision making. Autonomous decision making, when it decries democracy, is problematic. Autonomous decision making, when it advances bold ideas and new agendas that overcome past entrenched policies and practices that disadvantage and disenfranchise groups of people, that presents a problem. So, you know, there are advantages and disadvantages to any approach to leadership, and governance is what we're talking about. Governance of the city. And what you are referencing, to me, speaks to just what has appeared to be a consistent abuse of authority.
Yes.
A wielding of authority that does not advance the macro interest of the city, but small pockets of people who continue to benefit either through wealth or through power as a result of that. And that merits a lot of continued conversation, and I just thank you for bringing that up.
Well, Billy Murphy said it, and he said it best. To teach these people a lesson, these people who think they run in the daggone slave plantation, even though they're black. You got black plantation owners, and you did have black plantation owners as well. They actually existed. And you have these black plantation owners in the state of Maryland and in the city of Baltimore, okay, who act like they run a plantation, run roughshod over civil rights. Doc, you know about the civil rights violations. Violation after violation after violation after violation, and run roughshod over people's civil rights. That's the issue. These folks who do this, who are doing this, who are out there doing this, they need to pay the piper. And Billy Murphy said it best. He said you gotta hit them in their pocketbooks. Hit them hard. Doc, what do you think of that?
I would say this. I cannot disagree with what you said, but I would add just a little bit of icing.
Okay.
And the icing is that, sadly enough, many of our elected officials who happen to have the skin, like the three of us, they have sold us out. Yes, I'm saying black folks have sold us out.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have. They have sold us out, and they have abused, used, disgrace, violations, civil rights violations, Title VII, and so on, the 14th Amendment. I can go on. Take away due process. It's disgusting. It's a disgrace. But like I said, Billy said it best. And Billy, listen up. Okay, I know about your relationship with Johnny Cochran. I do. Yes, full disclosure. I know a whole lot more than you'll ever know that I know. And that hit them in the pocketbook. And Doc, your lawsuits that you had, you said you sued, and that's what people need to do. They need to utilize the civil rights, and they need to utilize the system to protect them, to get these people to stop doing it. I'm sorry, Linda, go on.
Well, I wanted to say a couple of things, but I will just sum it up to say that you have raised a point, and that is most folks, because they do not receive ongoing refined training in equal employment opportunity and civil rights, are still left with some belief that discrimination occurs where you have one person of one race treating a person of a different race differently. A white not promoting a black, for example. And that whole framework, that whole paradigm has changed. You pointed it out when you said that you have blacks discriminating against blacks. You have women discriminating against women. You have the whole framework for discrimination has really just changed on its heel based on what our earlier pre-1964 civil rights understanding and expectations have been. And most agencies, local agencies, I will say, are not providing that education and training to their employees and to the public for that matter. And they're reinforcing bad behavior with negative outcomes. So if you file a complaint, you wind up getting heavier doses of retribution and retaliation and ultimately wind up being terminated, which sends a signal to anybody else who might have thought about filing a complaint but just are struggling to make their ends meet and need the income to think twice about doing it. That's the culture that needs to be changed. And that culture can change with proper leadership. I know it because I've seen it happen in bigger, heftier, weightier places than the city of Baltimore.
Well, you have a plantation. That's what I call it. It's a plantation, and it's systemic. That's why you have other blacks and discriminating against blacks, and you have women discriminating against women, because it's systemic. It's put into the system to be that way, and they have training. This is the part that's ironic. They have training. They have sexual harassment behavior training, and then during the training, you have people in administration or in management doing sexual harassment while the training's taking place. So
I'm gonna throw out a name. I think y'all two in a discussion may concur at some point. But I'm gonna give it a name of what I'm talking about, selling us out. And I'm gonna put the name out here, James Torrance.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Okay. Ask yourself if you are a voter in his district, what has he delivered to you, or what has he taken from you? You can't name anything that he's actually done for any community of any importance in our district.
No, he has done something.
He is the prime example of someone that has sold us down the river.
He's done something. He has made the 7th district the dirtiest district in the dirtiest city. That's what Baltimore was listed as, and the 7th district had the most calls for trash and refuse and so on and complaints. It was the 7th district, so he's picked them.
How does the mayor and the city councilman not know that we told them on February the 21st that you had a bunch of young folks in West Baltimore that were sticking up people and taking their cars? The mayor didn't come to that meeting.
No, he didn't.
The Western District commander did not come, but at that meeting, we said on the 21st of February, you got a gang of we didn't tell what the numbers were, but you got a gang stealing cars.
Wow. Well, I'm not surprised.
How do you be an elected official if you don't know what's going on in your own district?
Well, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, considering who the mayor is, well, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not surprised at all that that's going on. And I digress. For you people out there who are going through so much that you're going through in the workplace in Baltimore City, if you're working in Baltimore City, I feel so sorry for you. And don't listen, folks. See, I have to. This show is about education, and I'm going to inform people of something who are employed. Human resources is not there for you. Human resources is for the employer. They're there to protect the employer. They're there to get information from you, act like they're your friend. Get information from you to give to the employer in order to put you down. That's what they're for. So when they say, oh, human resources help, human resources, folks, are not there for you. Human resources is your enemy. They're there to do you the dirty. They're there to say, hey, we're here and we're here to protect you and to help you in the rules and for your to make your boss do the right thing. No, they're not. They're not there for that. They're there to help the boss to get you out, to get you hit with written warnings or reprimands or suspensions and do all that, and the retaliation, and to do all that to work against you. So you people who think that human resources in the workplace or in the government, employee relations, all of them, it's a scam. They're not there to help you. They're there to set you up. You're a mark. And they don't tell you that. So this is what the outsiders has to do, because nobody else is going to do it. We have to come out, tell you the truth, and say the people you're working for, that human resource manager, that employee relations person, all of that, they are not there for you. Do you understand that, folks? They're there to get you. That's what they're there for. Linda, you know about human resources.
Well, I'm a human resource professional across many industries, and you know that human resources role is to advance the infrastructure for the organization,
yes,
following the instructions of management.
Bingo.
And a human resource system that has as part of its infrastructure a grievance procedure for employees, I believe, sends a bad signal and sets the stage for what I believe is a conflict of interest. Because carrying out the agenda of the organization's leaders on the one hand through their policies and procedures, and implementing policies and procedures that in some instances on their face perpetuate past discrimination and so forth and so on. You cannot have two bites at the apple by then saying, on the other hand, when employees come with an issue or grievance, that you can objectively work your way through that. You have to have an independent arm of the organization that works to create fairness and to level the playing field of past injustices. So, I mean, you know, and there are many models of good governance in that regard. And I'm not necessarily certain that what we see in Baltimore City government has progressed to that level of openness and receptivity to complaints that lead to changes in policies and procedures and creates a better system of human resource management, not only for the city employees, but for the citizens who have to receive services from those city employees.
Well, you have situations in employment where you can file a sexual harassment complaint against someone, and you know what they'll do? They'll put you in a room with the same person you filed a complaint against. Literally the next week, the next month, they'll put you right in a room together with the person, or they'll put the person above you, or they'll make the person your supervisor. That is the insanity that goes on in Baltimore City, and I'll keep repeating Billy Murphy. You want to stop that? You want to do something about it? People who are working, who don't say anything, who see all kinds of dirty happening, and they don't say anything because they're scared. They're scared of these tyrants, these evil, demonic person. May the demons come in your dreams, and may the demons do to you what you're doing to people.
Well, I think when you have employment scenarios where folks are really concerned about what happens with the employees, you have situations where your grievance processes are used to create and facilitate better policies. You have surveys that are quality of life surveys that go out to find out what the employees feel about their relationships with their managers, the applicability of human resource policies, and then you hold managers accountable for making changes based on the feedback that's given by those. When you don't see those kinds of tools, ongoing training, quality of life surveys, opportunities to resolve complaints at the lowest level possible, and employees who are willing to utilize grievance and other processes, not to harass the establishment, but to create a better and more sound framework for leading an organization, when you don't see those kinds of tools in place, then that sends a red flag. That tells you what you're dealing with. And we have to really be much more open and much more receptive to learning. We talk about benchmarking and best practices, and we just go through the motions, but we don't implement them with a degree of sincerity and integrity.
Well, what you should do, people.
What do we see 7 o'clock every morning? Every morning, Monday through Friday, what do we see 7 o'clock in Baltimore City? You see folks that don't live in Baltimore City come to work, and at the end of the day, 4 o'clock, they're going back out to their counties. We have one of the worst histories of nepotism employment has ever known.
Yeah, you got
Those unions
nepotism.
cannot be successful because we got more folks that don't live here that are working than folks that actually live here.
Because
that's why no matter how you come into Baltimore Monday through Friday, you can't get out of here because all the people trying to get in here.
Because they don't want to live. They don't want to live here because of the mayor and the way the city is, so they move out to the county.
No. I'm taking it past that. This city, the reason we have gotten as bad as we have on drugs, on crime, or police, is that these folks have not been living here. And it's only gotten worse when our employment has gotten worse.
Well, the mayor's driving people out. The population's dropping.
All you see is folks coming into Baltimore.
The population's dropping. The mayor's running people out of the city. They're leaving. Then they're putting speed cameras up everywhere to make up for the revenue that they're leaving, that the people are taking with them, tax revenue, because they're leaving. So that's how they're using things to hurt people to live here. But guys, this was great. This was a really good show. And Linda, I didn't know you were going to stay on this long, but I'm glad you did. And we're gonna keep
allowing me to stay on. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And thanks for sharing time. I quit one radio show because they wouldn't share the time.
Doc, I told you when you came on as a co-host, I said you have carte blanche to cover whatever you want. I don't know what these other folks were thinking, but maybe they weren't thinking. But that's what the agreement we had.
What show I come on, I share the time. And if you don't share the time, I don't want to be a part of it.
Well, we share the time. But I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode and watching another episode of The Outsiders. We're going to continue what's going on and watching everything that's going on in regards to the Key Bridge and this situation and the way these employees are being treated by their employers. All of that stuff, we're going to keep a watch on all of that. And I just want everybody to know that The Outsiders, we're here to do two things. We're here to chew bubble gum and kick ass, and we're all out of bubble gum. Okay, everybody. Goodbye. Take care. Take care, guys. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.